Thank you very much. We're going to do the top 10 entrepreneur lies, the top 10 lies entrepreneurs tell venture capitalists. This is a follow-up to the presentation I did last time, which was the top 10 lies venture capitalists tell entrepreneurs. The one we hear a lot is we are very close to getting a deal with a large corporation. And that's intended to sort of scare the venture capitalist in to hurry up, we got to invest, you got to invest now, because if you don't invest, Google's going to come in and do a really big deal with us, and then you'll have to pay a lot for us. But the bad news is companies like Google, Microsoft, etc. have a to-do list, and they deal with a lot of startups, and often you are 81,365 on the to-do list, which is to tell you, no, they're really not going to do a deal with you. We have some key employees ready to join. I get this all the time because you got one entrepreneur who comes in, he wants to pitch an idea. He doesn't have his team put together, but he always tells us, we got a great team. We can't tell you who they are. We can't tell you who they are because they'll get fired from their jobs if we tell you. But they're ready to join as soon as you start. But we immediately ask, can we speak to them then? And then it's, then we find out they're really, probably aren't key employees who are ready to join up. So that's one of the other common ones. Several VCs, we hear this all the time, several VCs are really interested. Several venture capitalists are dying to invest in our deal. What you haven't figured out is we all talk together. We're all connected. We all know each other. We are all connected. So if one guy's really interested, we all know. So what we ask you is, define what you really mean by interested, because what you find out is they may not be as interested as you think. And this is not Gordon. Gordon was much cuter as a baby. Hopefully that's none of your babies. It was on Google Images for fat babies. This is the best deal you'll ever see. We hear this all the time. Of all the thousands of deals that are addressing big markets and are going to make you tons of money, this is the best deal that you will ever see that you got to get in now. You'll never see again. Now, this is a deal that I would love to fund. So if any of you guys have this deal available, then we'd be very interested in funding this deal. Thank God my son doesn't probably get that. Do you, Gordon? I'm sorry. Big company blank is too slow to be a threat. We hear this all the time. We're going to compete with Microsoft. We're going to compete with Google. We're going to compete with Intel, Cisco, Merck, etc. They're too slow to be a threat. They're too fat. They're too lazy. They're not nimble enough. Well, the problem is that you may be too small or irrelevant for them to matter at this point. And what you find out is big companies do have a lot of power, and they could potentially squish you. So, don't be convinced that big companies are too big to be a threat, because they will crush you. Our IP position is airtight. IP, intellectual property. Our patent position is airtight. What I tell you about patents, what I tell everybody about patents, is patents are great, but they don't stop the competition, and they won't stop somebody from kicking sand in your face. So they don't really care what your sandcastle making technique is patented. They just don't care. So if you don't have the ability to protect your business in the long term for lots of reasons, not just because the patent, I can assure you the patent won't save you. All we have to do is get 1% of the market, and look how big we'll get. This is a lie we hear all the time. We heard it a lot in the dot-com era. This was the big internet, the grocery.com, the et cetera, et cetera. But what we hear as venture capitalists, when you tell us that 1% is all we need, what I think is 99% of the customers find your product useless. So don't just tell me that 1%, all we need to do is get 1% of the market, because the thing we hear all the time is that then the rest of the market must not care about your particular product. And obviously the pet rock is an example. We're chasing billion-dollar markets. Every one of our deals are chasing billion-dollar markets. The problem we run into is that all deals, every deal we ever see, every single time, is always chasing billion-dollar markets. So when you think about chasing billion-dollar markets, don't tell it to me. I've heard it before, because what I know is there's a whole bunch of people, Google, Microsoft, McKesson, GE, Merck, Cardinal, and then 41 venture-backed startups are all chasing the same billion-dollar market. Last time I checked, 169 venture-funded video sharing websites out there, all chasing the same billion-dollar market. Classic lie we hear all the time, this cannot fail. We've got everything lined up, we got the right market, we've got the right team, we've got the intellectual property. This cannot fail. Now this is something that we hear constantly, and surprisingly we hear, but as we've learned as venture capitalists, just because you think it won't fail, it doesn't matter how well you've designed it, that often it'll fail, and the failures will often be spectacular and much more greater than you might ever imagine. And then I think finally, our last slide, is these financial projections are conservative. Everybody that's ever presented to a venture guy is laughing because you all said it. We've cut the financial projections low, low, low. We've raised expenses high, high, high. These are as conservative as they'll ever be. Let me tell you how I figure conservative. I take the entrepreneur's figure, I divide it by 10, I add 5 years, then I get to conservative financial projections. So when you're addressing early markets and new markets, you don't really know what's going on, sometimes the psychic squid might be your better option. Thank you. And by the way, one other thing, I don't want a robotic device to turn my prostate into an origami. I want it just to cut it and take it out. So how it twists it. So